Individual variability in metabolic responses to time-restricted eating presents one of the field's most compelling yet underexplored dimensions. Emerging research stratifying participants by chronotype using validated instruments like the Munich Chronotype Questionnaire reveals striking differences in how morning larks versus night owls respond to identical eating window interventions. When combined with genetic analysis of circadian clock genes, including clock, PR3, and BMAL1 variants, a picture emerges suggesting that intrinsic circadian biology substantially moderates the metabolic effects of meal timing modifications. Morning-preferring individuals demonstrate more favorable metabolic adaptations when adopting early time-restricted eating protocols, with improvements in insulin sensitivity, glucose excursion dampening, and subjective energy levels. Their endogenous circadian phase alignment naturally supports earlier eating cessation, creating concordance between behavioral restriction and biological preference. Continuous glucose monitoring data from these participants shows reduced glycemic variability and lower peak glucose values following identical test meals when consumed during their circadian preferred morning hours. Genotyping reveals that carriers of certain PR3 length polymorphisms associated with morningness exhibit enhanced phase-shifting capacity in response to timed feeding cues, potentially explaining their superior adaptation to early eating windows. Conversely, evening chronotypes assigned to early time-restricted eating frequently report increased perceived effort, hunger during restricted hours, and occasional adherence challenges. Their metabolic responses prove more variable, with some showing minimal insulin sensitivity improvements and others experiencing paradoxical increases in fasting glucose. The mechanistic explanation likely involves circadian misalignment when behavioral eating schedules conflict with endogenous circadian preference. The peripheral tissues governing glucose metabolism may resist entrainment to meal timing cues that contradict the central circadian pacemaker's evening-oriented programming. Genetic variants in clock genes associated with eveningness correlate with blunted metabolic responses to early time-restricted protocols, suggesting inherited constraints on circadian plasticity. These findings demand a fundamental reconsideration of one-size-fits-all meal timing recommendations. Precision nutrition approaches should incorporate chronotype assessment and potentially genetic screening before prescribing specific eating windows. For night owls, later eating windows aligned with their circadian preference might yield superior metabolic outcomes and adherence compared to misaligned early protocols, even if population-level data favors early restriction. The field must transition from asking whether time-restricted eating works to identifying which eating windows work for whom. Clinicians implementing meal timing interventions should assess chronotype, monitor both objective metabolic markers and subjective tolerability, and remain prepared to adjust protocols based on individual response patterns rather than rigid adherence to population-derived recommendations.